Hi, my name is Velez, a bit of cartoonist from the Bronx, and we're here with the fabulous Leenda Bonilla. Okay, how you doing, Linda?
I'm doing well. Thank you, Ivan.
Great. Linda, tell me, how are you an artist? Who are you?
Oh, well, I'm doing well because I'm hanging out with you. And with regards to my art practice or me being an artist, I want to say art has always been like a baseline to living in my life in New York, in the Bronx, in Puerto Rico, wherever I go, whatever I'm working. I've always made it a point to weave arts and arts practice and culture into the type of work I do. I'm a visual artist, but just understanding that, it's very broad, but I do, for me, everything started with magazines and
Mm.
was inspired by magazine publishing but it was photography and graphic design that were the things that really inspired me to to pursue it. And but creatively, it's always been like the little things in the Bronx, like you change your hair, you help your friends, you participate in art events, and then um, I don't know, it's always something that I've always done as part of the fabric of my being.
Okay, so what's your connection to the Bronx?
I was born and raised here in the Bronx.
What?
Was I grew up by Westchester Square.
Ah, okay.
So from 0 to 3, I was on Frisbee. And then from 3 to like my late 20s, I was off of East Tremont and
Really?
St. Ray. I was East Tremont and Paulding, which was a dead end block. And I
Mm.
was a block away from St. Raymond's Church. So I went to St. Raymond's as I went to elementary school. So
You were
my
somewhere
dad,
in like Hunts Point area, right? Like around there.
uh-uh. Where
No?
I live is East Tremont, and it's like my block, I used to call it Switzerland because it was like in the middle of everything. So if I made a right, I go to Parkchester. If I go this way, I go to Castle Hill. If I go to that way, it's Westchester Square. And I go further that's Throgs Neck. But if I go and hop on the Cross Bronx, then I'm heading downtown to the city. So it was it's northeast corridor of the Bronx.
Yeah.
And my train stops varied depending on where it was, like Westchester Square, Zariga, or Castle Hill, depending on where I needed to go.
A deep connection in there.
Yeah, that's only growing up. And now I worked in New York City Parks and community development, and I had the pleasure of working for the whole borough. And in this new job,
Mm.
what's not so relatively new, but I cover the Bronx as well. So I know the layers of the Bronx in terms of like where one zip code ends, the other one begins, where the intersection of community boards and knowing what parks and what district. Like I love having that kind of crazy knowledge now.
So, how are you feeling about the world these days?
Well, last week you couldn't talk to me last week. Went completely off grid. Um, I felt, I feel that there's a sort of reset that's happening with people like myself that are interested in community activism, sustaining communities, elevating communities. And I feel like I think it's the root of who we are as a people. Like, yeah, we got knocked down again. That's how I feel. But now it's about getting, overcoming that disappointment and now organizing and getting people together of all ages
Mm.
to just understand like this is not it. This doesn't have to be the final say.
Right.
And this is where education and human connectivity is vital. We cannot silo. That's what they want us. They want us to divide.
Art help?
Yes.
How so?
Art is a is a tool for change, and it could be subtle and it could be in your face. It really depends on, and it could happen. Anyone can do it at any age. It's just art is so enveloped in our lives that people just miss it. And so it could be, you know, a simple sentence, a word. It could be like a haiku, or it could be a little doodle, and it could be a beautiful mural.
Hmm.
It can be the interaction of people sharing an oral story. It could be people creating one piece with all hands on deck, just creating that, whatever element that is. It could be with music, it could be with food, it could be with dance, it could be with videos. I mean, there's so many ways of trying to use art as a tool to create change, to inspire, to elevate.
So, what is the importance of art in your personal life?
It's preservation. For me right now, I feel I don't see myself, or I don't see myself in art out there, like in the commercial art scene, in the public world.
Right.
And so I guess being inspired by female artists and other male artists, and those identifying like that really resonate about the inner person and how the inner person reflects out.
Yeah.
I I really have, I mean, I use myself as a canvas in terms of my hair and my face, and I've always used that as the base. But when it
Yeah.
comes to making art, it's like I'm pivoting to making portraits now, like self-portraits, and also taking elements of my life and building them into pieces where I surprisingly find people find connectivity to. So I think that's where I am with art right now. It's just like preserving these nuggets of history that I've engaged in my short span of life right now, to show what it was like being this version of 70s, 80s, 90s, and thousands as a Boricua woman living in the Bronx, being ambiguously beige, dealing with all the isms in between.
Legacy beige. I never heard that before.
Yes, ambiguously beige, like that's been the torture of my life. You know, you're not to this and you're too much of this, you're not enough of that,
Hmm.
everything in between. So
Okay.
I use art to like harp, like to like connect it in with elements of culture
Right.
and pop culture.
What was it about art that attracted you in the first place?
For me, it was how art and in its different genres, how it can capture feelings and moments of time that you're living in. And for me, it was like the camera was able to capture a very sacred, you know, really intimate moments in life. I've had that beauty. Like I picked the camera up as a third grader,
Hmm.
and I had my camera when I was 8 years old, and I was going to the zoo with my friends, and it started there. And then I picked up blue eyeliner, and there goes that other expression there. And then
Wow.
drawing was started at 6, but and then understanding, like hearing the name Picasso, and under like seeing abstracts. And I remember taking my sister's was a protractor and
Yeah.
compass, and I was doing all that crazy shit.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, yeah. And there's like some study that came out, like where people were asked, like, what was it the thing that you said first when people asked you what you wanted to be? And I remember this priest visiting our house. I don't remember why or for what. I don't remember. Like he was doing some visit, and then he's like, "Oh, you, what would you like to be?" And I just remember I was like, "I want to be an artist." Like I remember saying.
What is who was your biggest artistic influence? Who?
So for me, the one that really, really blew my mind, and it's in two parts of my life.
Okay.
Um, it was in my late 30s. It was Papong Osorio.
Oh, sorry. Who's that?
Papong Osorio is um, installation slash social practice practitioner. He started out as a social worker who ended up getting he was in the Bronx art scene in the 70s and 80s, and he was connected with Bilaguado. And if you Google Pepong Osorio, you will see his extensive work and
Wow,
how it relates to the Puerto Rican community, urban and island.
that's very nice.
And I remember seeing one of his pieces in the permanent collection at Museo del Barrio. And I remember going with friends. We went to some opening and I saw the bed that was made out of capias.
What's a
And huh?
what's a capia?
A capia. Oh my God. Are you serious?
Hey, I'm not Puerto Rican. I didn't get that much.
Wait a minute. Oh my God. I want to run. I make them now. So a capia is those little corsages that they give out at cultural events.
Oh, a capia. Okay.
So birthdays, like sweet 16s, weddings,
Ah,
baptisms,
I
any
see
sort of
those. Yeah,
holiday.
with the little silver little balls on it and stuff. Yeah.
So there were balls, little girls, bottles, whatever, the rings. So I remember being flooded with them as a kid. I used to be like, oh, there's so many, I can't. And then, so they ended up disappearing in my life. And then, because I always felt like I knew my culture and I
Right.
had the privilege of going back and forth to the island. So I had that connectivity. But then understanding like the older you get, the more separated you are from that connectivity because of modernisms and things that are happening
So
with
with the capia,
life.
basically, was
Is
that your artistic influence too? What
I
it?
want to say, yeah, I have been using the capia on and off throughout my years. But when I saw his piece, it's an entire bed that
Uh-huh.
has covered with capias, and I
Wow.
remember just feeling that thing in my throat, like I felt my eyes watering, and I was like, oh my God, like he took something that was so invisible and has blown it, that like it's in the permanent collection at this museum because he's recognizing the relevance of this culture, how this little capia captured like our people.
So what
I,
is your least liked aspect of our culture?
I guess the silos that they still run in terms of like getting the work that it takes to get your work out there, or to have your work to share your work.
Yeah.
It's exhausting. And then understanding how vastly small the circles of curators are. And then they have so much influence, curators and administrators that come from big institutions
Right.
that are very much influenced by European canons or other major canons, and really try to throw some of the work that is done here
Right.
um, as colloquial or folkloric. And like that somehow they're tagging that as something like kind
Downgrade.
of devalues it. And I'm just like, no. I mean, like, how could you say that? So I think that's the stuff that I hate. The gatekeepers that try to quote elevate
Mhm.
art when they don't really know it. Like they don't know the people.
What's your favorite part of our culture? Our culture.
Art culture, or
It's your favorite part of our culture.
meeting new artists, meeting artists that are connecting with other artists, seeing artists produce new work, being able to collaborate with artists. I think that's the plus side, just
Hey, man.
being able to support each other. And it's hard because we're all living like 2 or 3 lives at a time to just like sustain a house and to sustain our practice and our studios. Like those are like major hurdles, but I love being able to go to an art event to celebrate people that whose work I admire, and being able to just see it there in that space, or being invited to people's studios to go check out their work there. Um, Being able to spread the word about projects that people do, like that's the part I love and appreciate, and I guess that keeps me going. That feeds my soul. Besides producing work, but seeing other people's work, and then having people connect with me too. also is a privilege and something that I really value a lot, because my work, I do, even though I do a lot of social practice, a lot of my other work is very solo, and I work in my bubble.
Very nice. This is the last question. Ta-da!
Mhm.
10 minutes later, we will. No, 10 minutes after the buzzer.
Ay, ay, ay.
Yeah. Um, what is your dream creation? Like, what do you hope you can create? What do you want to create as like your dream project?
I would say for me right now is to produce like a coffee table book produced of all the stuff that I've made so far,
Oh,
and
okay.
being able to showcase how each project that I produced was, though independent, they do have interconnectivity for the things that really resonate, which is like the urban island experience, feminism, the struggle with identity, politics, those kind of things. I would love to create a big public art piece. My goal is to create a public work that could be in a park somewhere. That's one of my goals. I guess as of for now, I would like to take Bata to like several other levels
Creative
and
capital.
just like produce more projects. Like I would love to create um, a Bata a Bata marching crew for the Puerto Rican Day Parade for next year.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much. See, it wasn't so bad, right?
I No, it's not. I'm very shy about stuff like this, but you always happens to get me to open up and
The sketch doesn't really look like you, but it's in 10 minutes, so that's okay. So it's like that, okay?
give me more